Hi folks, so we're going to be doing some needle felting today. Hopefully you've already grabbed your materials packs from York Learning, and one of the things that you will have is this little squishy pack for needle felting for today, and we're all going to make a little needle felted bee. I'll give you a close-up on him in a moment. So start off by unpacking your containers. This little paper fold has got your needle felting needle and your 2 pin eyes, and then you have 3 colours of dyed merino wool, merino being the breed of sheep that we use. It's a really lovely soft wool and it takes dye really well, so I use merino in a lot of my projects. The other thing that you'll need from home is a sponge. So I will be using my needle felting sponges today, but assuming that you don't have specific sponges at home already for that, just grab a unused sponge from your kitchen and we'll needle felt into the soft side, not the scourer side. Okie dokie, see you in a moment. Okay, here we go. So, here is our bee. Hopefully you can see that. A little bit closer. So, we're going to start by making his little bee body. So, carefully, in fact, caution, these are sharp. Carefully let yourself into the little pocket. So, in here we've got a single needle felting needle and his eyes for later. I'm going to put the eyes to one side. So we want to start by making the bee body. I've given everyone the right quantity of yellow fleece, yellow fibre to make the bee. I always take a little bit off and put a little bit to one side for later, just in case I want to tidy him up a bit later, so we'll put that there. The rest of this, we're going to start by tying a knot into it. That knot is going to be the central point that we wrap our fibres around. So we will tie that carefully in a knot. So here's the body of our bee. These loose wispy ends, we can wrap those around because we want to make it into an oval. So that's all wrapped up. We've got a solid ball of wool there. I'm going to start using my needle felting needle to felt this. So the needles in question, first off, very sharp, as you can imagine. I think I can do a little close-up on this. No, that looks disgusting. Let's put him back down. Basically, when you're having a look at it yourself, you'll see that the last centimetre or so is covered in tiny, tiny barbs. These barbs, when pressed through the fibres, they catch microscopic scales on each strand of sheep's wool and they tangle the fibres together. So what you end up with needle felting is, it doesn't sound very nice, but basically a ball of matted wool that we mat into specific shapes. So I've started here. Every time I'm pressing the needle into the work, I'm only pressing about this much of it through my fibres. Any more than that and it's no longer barbed, there's no point. So I'm just pressing it in. You'll also notice that underneath I've got my sponges, so if I did press too far and I went all the way through, I'm not going to break my needle on the table. I'm keeping my left hand out of the way and I'm just poking the needle felting needle into and out of the work in a way that isn't going to get me in the fingertip. I can absolutely attest that it's very painful if you get a fingertip. Do try and avoid that. So I mentioned briefly the idea about snapping the needle felting needles. The easiest way to snap your needle felting needle is when you place it into the work, jiggling it about before you remove it. So when you put when you're needle felting, place your needle straight into and out of the work. So it's always coming out in the direction that it went in. Don't try and insert it and then change direction and pull it out. That's a very easy way to snap it. So with this particular project, we want to make it into an oval. So as I'm chatting away, I'm moving my project round and round. Every time I insert the needle, I'm felting that tiny little area. So if I didn't move it round and round, I would end up with one felted plane and the rest of it unfelted. So I want to keep my work moving. Always make sure that I am mindful of the direction that I'm jabbing in, so that I don't jab into my fingers or into my hand. I once saw somebody across the room needle felting like this. Ah, pure panic. please don't try that at home. Oh my goodness, I'm going to say that a lot in these videos. Yeah, so please do be mindful and do it safely. So, and I will continue to felt this until I've got a nice firm felt on it. A couple of things to watch out for, as I say, is felting into the same area. So if I sort of stopped and just felted into this plane for an extended period, I would flatten it out. I would end up with one part of the felt that was flatter than any other. That's coming across quite quickly. So can you see here how we've got a flattened area? Whereas actually I want it to be quite nice and smooth and rounded. So if you get to that point and you've got that flattened plane, so if I put it onto the side, can you see how we've got a bit of a square forming? So I'm now going to work into this bit to try and round that off. So I'm going to work like this, just so I can soften up that area that was getting too much of a corner. I feel like there's quite a lump here as well, so I'm going to work into this bit for a bit. And there's no rush on a project like this. I'm sort of moving quite quickly because I've done needle felting a lot, but take your time with it. Lots of differing reports as to whether this is something that you should do as like a vengeful craft and think about somebody that you don't like. Think about, I don't go for that. I'm not too cross. But quite nice to take your time on a project like this, like I say. So I am going to switch off the video for a moment, and I'm just going to keep working away at this until I've got it to the stage where it's nicely shrunk down. So lovely, here we go again. So this is nice and ovaloid now, pretty happy with it. So I would go on to putting my black stripes on next, but I hear you cry from afar. Why did we leave a little bit of yellow wool separate? So in the event that as you're felting you end up with, sometimes you can end up with like a crease or a part in it that you're not happy with the surface of it. So you might have a crease or a gap or a hole. If that happens, so say we had a little hole here and we wanted to cover it, I would get some of these yellow fibres, maybe not all at once, take some aside, some of these fibres, and between your two hands just roll them up a little. And what we're making is a patch to go over the top of our problem area. So there we go, that's a nice little patch now. I would put that over the top and I would felt that in to give myself a nice smoother surface. And if I keep going, that would eventually completely encapsulate that, hide it over, and just give me a really nice surface. I don't want to do that, so I can still pull it away at this point. There we go. So there's my oval bee ready for his stripes. So stripies, take some of the black fibres that you've been given and separate out a strip of them like so. Now I think that's about right for, it's going to be quite a bold stripe, but who doesn't like a bold stripe? I'm going to start in the middle, and I did just stab myself a tiny bit there. I'm going to start in the middle, and I'm going to attach these fibres to my bee right here. I'm going to now work round bit by bit. So I'm going to completely felt this area, then I'm going to move on and felt it round and round and round. What I'm not going to do is wrap the entire thing round and then try and felt it. What will happen if you do that? As we felt round this stripe, it will constrict. So if you wrap the whole thing as one, you will end up with it pulled really, really tight, I don't know what like. It will pull really tight and be sort of like a sausage effect. Whereas if we do it bit by bit, it allows that stripe of black to shrink and to contract with it. So I'll keep going as we're talking. So there's that little bit. I'm now going to move on to the next section. go. So as you can see, the end of this black is shrinking in. It sort of uses the black fibres quicker than you think it's going to, because it gets pulled in. This is quite a nice stripe that's coming up here though. That's working well. I'm going to continue to do, continue to do my stripes, but as I'm nearly at the end, we'll show you adding another end on. So here we go. So say we'd felted that little bit in. I want to get a new bit on the go. So I'll take off another little stripe of these fibres and just lay it on top. So now I'm felting in those ends and starting a new piece. Continuing that stripe, just as we were. Right, I'm going to switch off the video again for a little bit until I've done those stripes. And then we'll join up for another bit of natter. And we're back. So we now have all of our stripes in place. I usually find that by this point, I've already, as I'm working, I decide which is a top bit and which is a bottom bit, so which bit's looking best, basically. So I quite like the look of it from this side, whereas I feel like my stripes go on their own journey underneath. There is still time to tidy this up a little bit. So I was talking about the black constricting it, and because we've done it bit by bit, that constriction's only happened a tiny little bit, but we have still got a bit of an area where, because this area of black has now had more needle felting jabs into it, it has felted more than the yellow either side. So I'm just going to work onto the yellow parts now to bring them down as flat as the black. So just working into these yellow parts to flatten them down so that we go back to having a really nice smooth oval B. I will do the rest of that off camera, but I will keep doing that. But for now, I'm going to show you how to make the wings. So we'll put our bee body to one side. The last colour, we've got some white in these packs. I realise now that I've given you way too much of virtually everything. So for the white, take off a small amount of the white. This will be ample for some nice big wings. One thing to remember when needle felting is when you want to join two pieces together, which we will do here, we'll make the wings and then join them on, the fibres that you're using to join must be unfelted. So what I mean by that is these little wings, we're going to felt this wing, and leave an area down the middle which is unfelted. So these fibres will be loose. It's these loose fibres that we will connect the two projects with. So, just making sure I haven't moved everything out of the way. No, we're still good. So our white fibres, I start by bringing those two loose edges into the middle, laying it onto my sponge or sponges, and as I was saying, I'm going to felt this area and this area. I'm going to leave this bit in the middle with these nice loose fibres totally alone. So let's start. So the fibres are now laying flat on the sponge and we are jabbing into them. I'm going to do one wing at a time because I find it easier. With this bit, because we're now felting through the fibres and into the sponge, you have to remember to pick it up every now and again because those fibres will go into the sponge underneath. So, felt. I'm going to put this on fast forward for a little bit so you can see me felting without my voice behind it. So fast forward, here we go. and back I'll fast forward. So we've now got one quite nice little wingy. Size wise, I think that's about right for our bee size wise. So I'm going to do the other side of the wing, and I'm just going to do exactly the same thing. So I'm going to video off, I'm going to make the other wing, and as we've said, I'm doing that thing where I labour the point again. As we've said, I'm going to keep a portion in the middle completely loose fibres. So I shall see you back here with a felted bee, nice and smooth, and 2 wings with fibres in the middle. Oh, and if I raise this up a bit, you might be able to see. So where some of my black fibres are just a little bit loose. Maybe there's a little bit extra here that hasn't felted in. I can either felt these in, or if you're feeling a little bit fast forwardy, you can snip them off with some scissors and just tidy up those edges like that as well. Okay, see you back here in a moment. Okay, so we now have our bumblebee all neatened up, looking fabulous, and our 2 little wingies. So 2 solid bits of needle felting with a nice fluffy bit in the middle. Which way did I say was up? Oh, this way's up. So here's my bee. I'm going to put his face here. There's his little bee butt. Wings in the middle. Now I like to squish this in a little bit. So press those 2 bits in like farfalle pasta. But we're going to start by, right in the centre, start poking the white threads into the body of the bee. And what's happening here is, as I'm poking this in, the white fibres are being poked into the body of the bee, and that is anchoring them in there. As we do that, the wings also come up a little bit, which is quite nice. So like I say, I want this to go in a little bit, so I'm just going to pop that in. There he goes. Turn him round. Want to do the same from this side, so I'm driving, in fact I'll do it like this, I'm driving my needle felting needle into the work in sort of a diagonal, so that as it's catching those fibres, it's pushing that in a little bit to give me that nice shape. I'll try and do this at an angle. Don't usually have to think about the best angles for film. This is all a new endeavour. That's starting to get there though, so there we go, there's his nice little bee wings coming up. And as with everything else, I would just keep pottering away at that until I've got them nicely positioned where I want them. And the last thing I do is pop his little cute eyes in. Oh, nearly. There you go. Oh, well, you'll look at that. What a little cutie. He's a nice boy. Slightly bigger than the other chap. Maybe this one's a lady. I digress, as always. So that is your needle felted project. I have done this pretty quickly, but I've also had lots of gaps where I've been working away where you haven't been looking. So in our usual 2-hour session, people will usually finish 1 project. Some people that have done it before might go on to do a second one, but do give yourself plenty of time with this, and just keep in mind that that the way that we shape needle felting is the plane that you work into will shrink down, will get smaller, and that's the way to shape it. This is quite a nice, easy shape to start with, and then yeah, go and grab some more products. If you do, I've only given everyone 1 needle. Purely because I didn't have enough to give everyone 2. If you do snap your needle and you would like another one, feel free to email me with your address and I'll pop one in the post for you. Alternatively, you can buy them from, I think you can buy them from Boys, you can certainly buy them from Hobbycraft, and all of the wool that we've been using today has been merino wool, dyed merino wool from worldofwool.co.uk, and you can buy the needles from there as well. This is a 38 triangle gauge that we're using. So happy needle felting. I hope that you enjoyed today. I have enjoyed it, if it's been a little bit surreal. And yeah, I suppose most importantly, stay safe. I hope everyone is all right. And yeah, email me, text me, WhatsApp me, any questions that you've got. I'll be posting the next tutorial, which will be soap making, probably in the next couple of days. I am self-isolating, so I've got time. Yeah, okay, lovely stuff. Thanks very much, guys. See you soon. Bye.